So there are a lot of games synonymous with being incredibly difficult. However, there's a game you've probably never heard of, and that's Pursuit Force. Now, I played this game way back in 2005, and I recently found it again in the back of my PSP, and all I really remember is how outrageously fucking difficult this game was. I barely managed the first few levels before giving up, so I thought, why not try and beat it 15 years later, and if it's worth it, I'll make a video about it. I'm gonna be honest, I was a bit worried that I'd overhyped this game in my head, as you do with childhood games, and after thousands of hours playing Dark Souls and Sekiro, I thought I might just come back to it, breeze straight through it, and then be incredibly disappointed. Turns out I didn't need to worry, because this absolute monstrosity is still one of the hardest games I've ever played, and it's every bit as difficult as it was when I was younger. However, I had a blast playing it and felt like it was worth making a video on, so without further ado, let's get into the video.
I ain't cock for breakfast, fool.
So the story is about as bare bones as physically possible. You're an elite super cop taking out gang crime in Capital City. It's literally called Capital City, and that's it. That's the entire story. The whole thing is like playing a very over-the-top 80s action movie, but it kind of works. The basic premise is there's 5 very generic gangs: the Capellis, who are a mafia-style crime family, the Warlords, who are renegade ex-soldiers, the Convicts, who are escaped convicts, the Vixens, who are an all-female heist gang, and the bane of my existence, Killer 66, a Yakuza-style gang that caused me more trouble than any of them combined. Each gang has 6 missions which the game calls cases, so 30 missions in total. Every third level will be a mini-boss, and the final level will be a disgustingly hard boss battle with the leader of the respective gangs. Some of these fights include a sumo carrying a flamethrower, a mafia don, and a woman wearing tight leather wielding an electric EMP whip called Whiplash. Yeah, it gets a bit weird, this game. On the levels themselves, you'll be stopping heists, killing drug dealers, fighting helicopters, protecting and escorting NPCs, and stopping people from stealing nuclear weapons. So, yeah, standard police work. The missions can get a bit repetitive, but on the whole, they're pretty good. You even have special one-off missions, like an homage to Speed, where you have to drive a bus full of civilians over 100 miles an hour, or the bus explodes. The more levels you complete, the higher your rank gets until you reach the rank of Commander. This lets you play the final level, and at the end of missions you get a rank from A to C. And obviously the more you play, the harder it gets. How hard, you may ask? Well, here's an example. The first gang are the Capellis. These are the first gang you're supposed to deal with, so you'd assume their missions would be fairly forgiving. The first mission I got on the first try, the second mission, first try, third mission, 2 attempts, fourth mission, 2 attempts, and the 5th mission, first try. So the final boss, 47 attempts. 47, and that's the first boss.
Great, now we've lost him for good.
And this just gets worse. So when you reach the endgame gangs, like the Vixens and Killer 66, it's nearly every mission. Most of them took me at least 5 to 10 attempts, sometimes more, and the Vixens boss fight took me 18 attempts. However, the final mission shattered my record for the most attempts at a boss of any game I've ever played at 70 attempts. 70 times I had to play it before I finally beat it. Now, the main reason it's so unbelievably difficult is because basically all of the stages have incredibly strict distance limits. So if your enemy gets too far before an objective is completed, you fail.
You had the #1 criminal in your sights and you let him get away.
However, this really isn't a bad thing. In fact, I wouldn't say it's a bad thing at all, because it makes the game incredibly addictive. There's a reason I went back 70 times to beat that boss, because even though you're furious the entire time, the difficulty never feels artificial or unfair, so you just keep going back. And when I finally did beat it, well, the joy was comparable to beating any Dark Souls boss. Personally, I don't see a problem with this game's difficulty, but I can definitely see why some people might. However, to help with the difficulty, the game does actually offer you cheats that make the game even harder. The first one is Detonator, which blows up any civilian car you come into contact with, which lowers your score and destroys your car.
A hero. Remember to get my number later.
The second one is Poison, that blurs the screen so you can't see what you're doing, and the third one is Iron Man, which halves the player's health and damage. So if you want to play Ultra Masochist mode, you can have all 3 of them on at once. Now, the gameplay is fast-paced and has several different sections, some better than others. The car and boat sections are definitely the best. The fact you can jump from car to car anytime you want is not only a lot of fun, but it's also vital. You see, you have a player health bar and a vehicle health bar. When you're in a car, only the car's health bar can be damaged, but take too much damage and you die. So you have to change cars all the time by jumping on other people's cars and taking out the people inside, and this is where the player health bar comes into play. However, on the flip side, people can jump on your car, and if you're not careful, you'll be flipped off cars and the poor fucker will have his head dragged violently across the ground until he dies. The jumping feature also extends to civilian cars, which sounds fun, but I never really found it that useful. Because not only do you risk blowing them up, but more importantly, when you hijack a civilian car, there's a 3-second delay where you slow down. This paired with the distance limits and the fact that the enemies can travel and take corners at Mach 3 means you're too far away to catch them by the time you're done. You also have another feature called the Justice button. This is filled up by killing criminals or taken away when you ram or kill civilians. This can be used to heal you and your car, or it can be used to do a slow motion jump to clear cars quicker before you've landed. And again, given the strict distance limits, in some stages if you don't use it, it's impossible to complete the mission. The convict boss battle with hardballs, yes, he's called that because his mission is literally hard as balls, is about as extreme as this gets. Because even if you're perfect with the jumps, it's always down to the last few hundred meters. But again, this isn't a terrible thing because it forces you to get better at the game. I mean, I was fucking fuming a lot of the time, especially when a civilian would ruin a good run, but I couldn't stop playing. And there's actually a wide variety of guns in this game. You pick them up when you hijack enemy vehicles, and on the whole these are much better than your standard pistol, except for the convict's nail gun. That thing can go fuck itself because it hits like a wet noodle. Aside from that, the game offers very little in the way of upgrades. You get a new pistol and then a bit more health, but that's it. Which I kind of like because it means it's all down to player skill, but I can tell why some people wouldn't like it. However, it isn't all fantastic. There are a few issues worth mentioning. For example, Killer 66 cars have a bad habit of when they're hit, they will spin out uncontrollably and ruin your run. And I don't mean crash, I mean friction ceases to exist and you slide around like a madman for 5 seconds. And 5 seconds in this game is the difference between passing and failing a mission. And when this happens multiple times in rapid succession, it can be infuriating. Now this doesn't seem to happen with the cars from any other gang, which I guess is good, but the fact it only happens on the hardest missions in the game is really quite unhelpful. The penultimate Killer 66 mission is horrendous for this, because not only does it waste so much time, but when you crash, you lose the Justice power-up, so you won't be able to do it anyway. On top of this, the other sections aren't nearly as fun, the on-foot sections are a bit of a chore, and the turret sections straight up don't work. Most of the time, whenever I looked down too far, my screen got blocked. Although this might be because of the emulator, I'm not sure. However, thankfully, these don't take up too much of the game and are more than manageable. I did also notice a glitch where whenever I pressed the right trigger, my game would speed up and I'd fail. Now, while this was incredibly annoying, it's clearly because I was playing on a controller and the right trigger doesn't exist on a PSP, so it just fucks with the game. Oh, and one final thing, I want to mention something that could have made the game infinitely harder. You see, I had to turn to an emulator to play this game so I could get the footage, and coincidentally chose the US version. This has checkpoints when you complete a mission section. The EU version, however, like the one I had on PSP, doesn't have them. So take the penultimate Killer 66 mission I was talking about. Not only is it punishingly hard, but it's got 3 sections. An annoying on-foot section, a turret section, and a very difficult driving section. If you die in the EU version, you have to start the whole thing again, and this adds just another layer of stress to an already hard game. So I suppose if you wanted to play uber masochist mode, you could play the EU version and turn on all the cheats, but I'm not going to do that in a hurry. Overall, this game is a blast. I may sound like I've been moaning a lot of the time, but it really is a lot of fun. Very difficult, but a lot of fun. Definitely worth playing if you like challenging but rewarding games. I should mention there is a sequel called Extreme Justice, which toned down the outrageous difficulty. I probably won't play it, but if you find this game too hard, but like it anyway, then you should probably play that one, because I've heard it's not nearly as difficult. Overall, it was nice to come back 15 years later and finally complete this game. And if you enjoyed the video, feel free to leave a like, comment and subscribe, and I'll see you on the next one.